Thank you for having us here. It's our pleasure to be able to share a little bit about Ukraine and also raise awareness among the people so that more people can get involved and help, because we're in time of this great big need. Anyways, so to 24 February, Maryna wakes me up in the middle of the night, 4:30 in the morning. I am half asleep, half awake. And she's saying, I've heard the explosions, we've been attacked. And I'm saying, I wanted to sleep. Like, I didn't want to be awake at 4:30 in the morning on that particular day. And I'm saying, Maryna, go to bed. You're dreaming. Like, you are having these dreams, the horrible dreams. And she's, no, look at the media. And I'm looking at the media, and it's true. It's all over the news. Like, we've been attacked. Russia sent missiles to all the major cities of Ukraine, like more than 60 missiles at once, all the major targets of the military targets and other targets. Not only military, but also infrastructure. And that's the map of Ukraine. So when they came, this map was taken on March 17th. 22% of Ukrainian territory was occupied. Ukraine is not a huge country. It's about the size of Texas. And Ukraine has 38 million population. And so I woke up, I got to the window where I was standing. I looked down. We live in a 25-floor apartment building. We're living on the 8th floor. And so I'm looking down from my window, and I'm looking down, and here's all our neighbors. They're running with their bags, with their possessions, with their children, with the cats, dogs. They're packing stuff in their cars, and slowly, one by one, the cars are starting to move. And there's a traffic jam on the way out of our neighborhood because we have literally thousands of people, like 1,000 people living in our apartment, and then there's apartments like that all around us, and all these people are moving out. And some people say, so why do you do compassion? Why do you stay? Well, you think about this. When people with means, people with cars, people with money abandon or leave or go to other places, who's staying there? Well, the typical picture is that people who are staying behind would be poor people and elderly people and people with disabilities. When I was appointed a coordinator to response, it doesn't mean that I was given an office and a safe full of money and a hat saying Nazarene Compassion Ministry. Doesn't work like that. It's just, okay, you are the only one on the ground who knows something how to help people in need. Can you do it? Can you help other churches? And so I would start going out to the cities where I don't even know some of the cities, and trying to find places or trying to build networks with other churches and organizations and trying to see who can help us and what's available. And so I would go to the city, and I would somehow get the contact of someone, and then I go and ask them to give us a box or two of food or hygiene items or diapers or something, or baby formula. They would give it to me, and then I would go to another organization, and I would say, guys, I've already got something, but I don't want to travel empty. Do you have something else to send to Bucha, or do you have something to send to Odessa, or something to send to Vapnyarka, or something to send to Kiev? And then I'll get portion, like 3-4 boxes from another organization, then from another organization. And by the end of the day, after all this knocking, praying hard and asking Lord to provide, you get something, and then you take it back to one of the churches. And I was making sure that we have 5 Nazarene churches in the area in Ukraine, and I was making sure that every 2 weeks each church receives something, so that they are in turn can have 200, 300 food packages that they can then give to people and serve their community and people around them and the families, and especially like one family that we have, they have a child with diabetes, so they need insulin and they need shot, and that's not available. Like that's not available. So you have to find it outside and then just bring it to them so that they can do what's needed for their child. And hospitals, we would go to hospitals, talk to the doctors and say, how can we help you? Do you need any professionals to come from outside? And the doctor would say, no, we have the best surgeons in the world. What we are lacking is like the basic, like even bandages, needles, IV systems, some basic things. They say we have all the skills to do all the surgeries, but we are just simply out of basic medical supplies. And By the end, we would go all the way to Poland. We would get on a volunteer pass, and we would go in Poland because some items are cheaper, like the food would be 25% cheaper to buy in Poland, even including the transportation, still cheaper and more variety in Poland, and transport it back in Ukraine. And we would go out and collect the crisis care kits. Again, like in a time of war, you cannot fly anything directly to Ukraine or ship anything to Ukraine because the sea is blocked. Both the Azov Sea and the Black Sea is blocked by Russians, so you can only fly or ship to Poland, and then someone needs to go to Poland and take it in Ukraine, and then from Ukraine, like from a central distribution point, make sure that all people receive the supplies. And so the crisis care kits we would get and take it to the people, and they're like golden, like really gold to some of the people, because if you think about the refugees, try imagine yourself being a refugee. Think about, like, if you're a single mother and you have 2 children on you and 2 suitcases. You know, being a single mother is difficult enough. And then if you have to deal with 2 or 3 children, even if it's one child, but you still have a huge suitcase that's full of your personal stuff, plus you need to have some stuff for babies. And sometimes, like, people would not even have enough space on them. So they need, and people would take some basic stuff, but they would not bring anything on them. They would not have, like, blankets and pillows. And so that's why the church was buying, like, sleeping bags and giving to people, or hygiene items, crisis care kits. They're golden because the refugees, when they come, typically they don't carry anything heavy, and when they come and they get, like, the big bottle of shampoo and the toothbrush and toothpaste and the soap and some of the stuff that are in crisis care kits, that's like golden to some of them, because some of them, when they travel, they don't have a lot of money. People spend a lot of money on traveling. They would prefer to spend money on food than to spend money on the hygiene items, although the hygiene items are important. And it's not only for civilians. Our soldiers, when the crisis care kits go out to them, they appreciate it so much because they have to travel around, and and sometimes it takes the whole country really to respond to this, and that's why it's important that we have people, not only Ukrainian, uniting around this idea, not only churches uniting around this whole idea, but also, like many other countries, united around this idea and around this need that we have currently in Ukraine. This is more than Ukraine can handle on its own. This is bigger than our economy. And Russia is a huge country, and Russia has been saving towards the war. And Russia has lots of military supplies, even from the World War II. And so there's Ukraine without external help has no chance of standing. What's unique still about Ukraine is that when the war started, we kind of set aside all our church differences and theological differences and all the things that typically divide us as Christians. That was all put aside because we had a larger need ahead of us. And I would had this pastoral group from the Kiev city, all the young pastors who are doing all the church plants in Kiev. And I would say, guys, we need food, for example, to go here. And then all of a sudden, like, the pastor from the Calvary Chapel responds to me and say, hey, I have food. And then the pastor from like a Baptist church said, hey guys, I have Bibles if you can take Bibles in. And then someone would say, I know how to get the fuel, for example. And so all of a sudden you see, like, the body of Christ, the church, all of a sudden working together, we're not discussing, like, the difficult issues, but actually thinking, how can we be Christ to community? How can we be Christ to people? How can we be church to people? Because the people need Christ, and they need someone who would, like in one of the pictures you see there's a grandmother and she's crying. You think, why would she cry? Well, she's not crying because we brought food to her. She's not crying because she will have something to eat. She's crying because there's this general sense of people feel very lonely and very abandoned. Like, people think our government abandoned us, our local government abandoned us. Sometimes they think their children abandoned them, or sometimes they would think, like, all these other people, like, no one cares, And when you have a Christian community, someone from the church that comes to them and actually does what the Bible says about walking extra mile, like stepping out of your way and doing something extravagant to help someone else, that means a lot to some of the people. You come to them and a couple of times I had people come to me and kiss my hands as if I'm, a god to them, which I'm not a god. I'm just a person that made a decision to be available to people. And that's so important, that's so significant, and that's why when you come to them, they cry because they appreciate the help. There's a general sense of feeling, like I said, we understand. A lot of people in Ukraine, we understand that to survive in this situation on our own, like each individually, would not be possible. And so the only way for us to survive is if the church is united, if Christians are united around Christ, about His values. Because we sometimes have poor communities. You have poor communities here. We have poor communities back home. And Christ was saying, you will always have poor people around you. But sometimes when we go through the poor communities or through the not so good communities, we, even as Christians, sometimes we want to close our eyes and almost like turn away from the need, turn away from the problem. And say, let someone else deal with this. Let someone else be a solution to this need. Let the government, let another church, let someone deal with this. And this is, when I'm thinking about this, what we are going through right now, and I'm thinking about Christ. If Christ was in this situation, if Christ was right now in the middle of this war between Ukraine and Russia, and He would see some of the cases like we see, and some of the families that we work with, would He turn away? Would He make sure, pretend like they don't exist? Would He not try to do at least something to help these communities, these people? And I'm not talking about, doing a lot. Maybe just, even some basic things like praying about people, blessing the people, talking about this situation with other people so that more people can get around this and pray and brainstorm how to help, how to respond, how to be involved.
The last thing, and we have a few moments, is the upcoming winter. Share about just something, winter is rough there. Mm-hmm. Money, you mentioned 20%. The government had said early on that they were going to help meet the needs, and they were wanting to, I'm sure, but then only 20% of tax revenues coming in. Share a little bit about that, because that's going to be the third thing we as a church are going to help tackle.
Mm-hmm. So right now, we're not quite into the winter, and so some people, especially affected in the war areas or very close, people who lost everything, they don't have, some towns don't have gas, some towns don't have electricity, some of them don't even have running water. So people use the water from rivers or they use filters if they're available, or if they can get and do drill the hole, they can get some water from the ground. But that's not everywhere available. And so winter is coming, so one of the biggest needs would be to have some winter clothes and maybe some winter socks, or like I was sharing with you, people would need blankets, because a lot of refugees who come, for example, now people that come from Kiev thinking that Kiev is safer, although Kiev was bombed last week and it's not really safe. But people come there and they bring, some of them come as they are, like in their clothes, what they got out of their home with, that's all they have on them. And some people, they bring little supplies, but they would come to us and they say, do you have any blankets, or do you have any pillows, or do you have anything like even like a portable stoves that you can cook on outside with gasoline and all of that. And as a church, like I said, we would buy, we didn't have access to blankets, but we would buy the sleeping bags, the one that you can unzip and make into a blanket, so that people can have that. And having winter coats would be essential, something warm, because like this one lady was telling us, she stayed in home, and it's her house, didn't have gas or electricity to warm the house with, and she said, I was sleeping in my winter coat, like she had the fur coat, like the Russian or Ukrainian fur coat, and she's saying I was sleeping in the heavy winter boots, and then I had 5 or 6 blankets on top of me just to keep me warm, because it was so cold, freezing cold. And die. Especially imagine you're living in a house or you're living in an apartment that you don't have windows, like all the glass was trashed by the explosions, and you can put a little like plastic tape on top just to cover it, but it's not nearly enough to keep you warm and keep your family warm. And sometimes the families would get together in the same room and sleep in the same bed, all of them, just to keep them warm.
There's a whole branch, if you will, of the Church of Nazarene called Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, NCM, Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. Andriy is the coordinator for Ukraine. He has been, and of course it's been incredibly elevated position recently. It's a fascinating thing where typically when you give to organizations, there's overhead, and we know that, and sometimes we wonder how much overhead. Almost 90% of what goes to NCM goes to the people on the ground. And one of the things he mentioned were these crisis care kits. And so I'm going to explain eventually 3 ways we as a church are going to come alongside right now, and he's going to keep me posted on ways going forward. One is financially, and we'll lean into that more. It's going to go to food, it's going to go to medicine, it's going to go to water. He's leading the charge on that, and I'm going to ask him, he's going to explain how that's functioning. That's on our app or on our website. Just go to Ukrainian Families. 100% of that is going to go to that. If we need to get some sleeping bags, whatever, he's going to keep me posted. I just want to remind you too, if you're watching it online, we want you to participate. You can give. They'll give you the link. You can drop coats off here. You can mail them to us. You can send crisis care kits.